So, Eddie, we have seen the retirement of Tyson Fury, which I've gone, I don't care, move on. If he wants to retire, let's let him retire, do what he wants. But it does leave the question of Anthony Joshua.
Yeah.
I mean, people are now alluding to the fact that the major dance partner for Anthony Joshua economically is obviously the Fury fight. I think you alluded to the fact that you had encouraged or were encouraging Anthony Joshua after the Dubois defeat to potentially look at retirements.
Yeah.
You've spent time with him. Where is Anthony Joshua? What do you think is in his mind, and where do you think the direction of travel is?
He seems to be in a good space. I met him in Nigeria, where it's almost as though he wanted to press the pause button and just get away from the noise and just go to Nigeria, refocus, relax, get some sun on your back. And he seems now to be in a space where, OK, I'm back. I'm back. What are the options? And look, I think the one option we spoke about, and I spoke to him a few weeks after that Nigeria event, was Tyson Fury. And he seemed to be all guns blazing for Tyson Fury. Like, OK, I just want this fight. I don't know if I can win, but it's the most fight that generates the biggest money. It's the fight everyone's been asking for. Yeah. Let's just do it. Let's just do it at the end of our careers, both of them. And now that's kind of, again, we don't know if Tyson Fury is officially retired, but now that looks like it's been put to the side. It's now a case of, OK, what do you do? Do you do a rebuild like you did when he lost to Usyk and go down a level and fight the Jermaine Franklin types? Or do you go straight in with someone, risky, and just go for it?
Yeah.
So AJ's going to have to... If AJ's here for the next 2-3 years, then, OK, you do the real rebuild job. If I think AJ, and I do think he's only here for another 12 months, you just take the toughest fights.
Rebuild
the
to
most
what?
money.
I mean, obviously, we all sat here and everyone ruminated about Anthony Joshua and the rebuild. And you saw Jermaine Franklin, you saw Robert Helenius, you saw Otto Wallin, and then you saw Francis Ngannou. And everybody was delighted after the Ngannou situation because of the debacle of the Fury Ngannou situation. So everyone then, you know, he's back, he's got the eye of the tiger, he's good to go, he's going to put himself in range and he's going to let his hands go. And you see the destruction of him. So he wasn't redeemed, he wasn't rehabilitated, he wasn't at the level that people assumed he was. Right? So there isn't a space for a rebuild.
There is no rebuild.
Because the rebuild opportunity's been and gone, because everyone's going to say, as soon as he goes in with a live one again, he's going to get the same situation.
I don't think he's in that place in his career anyway. I don't think that that's an option that he would like to go through again, where you go through that 2 or 3 fight rebuild thing. I think now you have to dare to be great. You've got to go in with those names. You've got to take a risk because you're at that stage of your career. You said it there.
You were with him.
Months.
You were with him.
Yeah.
So you must have an insight into where he's really thinking, because ultimately, how does he reflect, given the passage of time that's gone on, right? You hear the instantaneous reaction and you hear a little bit of leakage from his camp in terms of potentially they don't want him to fight Daniel Dubois.
Yeah.
But you've spent time with him over Christmas, 3 months after a big fight and a catastrophic outcome for him. How does he reflect upon that fight now, given there's a passage of time gone past?
Disappointed. And it's funny because I saw him from a few metres away and I was like, oh, I maybe overread AJ. I read his body language, I read what he's saying. I sometimes don't take what he says as fact. I kind of just look at him. So I was watching him for a few minutes, just away from me going over, because we haven't spoken since I said he should retire. So I thought maybe there might be a bit of heat there and a bit of pushback. I honestly thought there might be a bit of pushback because I've said you should retire. So when I went over, very warm, and I did ask, like, what next? Are you still doing this? And he said, yeah, Fury. And he didn't stutter through it. He jumped straight at it. That's what we want to do. If that doesn't happen, I think you go Hrgovic. I think you go Hrgovic, Dubois, or Hrgovic, Bacoli. I think that's all you do. I've heard a lot of people say Dillian White. I don't want to see a Dillian White fight. I don't want to see a Deontay Wilder fight. I think you go in with someone who's only lost once as well in Hrgovic, and then you go. And I think we'll gauge a lot and see a lot where
Where's
he is.
the value of Hrgovic? Hrgovic is
just to see if it's still there. You know what it is? I think it's just to see if it's still there.
Right.
It's just to do a training camp, go through sparring, and to ask yourself if it is really there.
I think
there's one thing saying it, and there's another thing knowing it.
Yeah.
And I think Hrgovic will look at AJ's performance and think, I can do you as well. So I think it's a closer fight than people think, and it's not a complete drop down. It's still someone top 10, top 15. But I think you know from the Hrgovic performance if we even want to see a Bacoli or a Dubois. Because right now, if I'm honest with you, and I say this as a big AJ fan, I don't want to see Bacoli. I've been shouting for, Riyadh season in Africa for a long time, but I think Bacoli's super dangerous. And Dubois, it looks like AJ's team don't want to see Dubois. So let's see where you are against a good guy in Hrgovic, and then we'll all know.
I think that what you're saying about the Anthony Joshua situation is that AJ will fight any of them guys on the table. That is a fact, right? Whether that's Martin Bacoli, it's not if it was his decision, he would go wherever. Just
But
give
it
it
is
wherever
his
you want.
decision.
It is
But
his.
no,
He's the captain of the
yeah,
ship.
no, but his team will also map out a
Spence.
route for him.
He's the captain of his own ship, right? He has regularly said this himself and repeatedly said this himself.
Simon, his team will map out a route for him to go back to the top.
I'm sure they will, right? But what you're saying is that he isn't captain of his own ship. If he wants to fight Daniel Dubois, he'll
what
fight
I'm saying
Daniel
is he
Dubois
would take any of the fights that are put on the table, and if that is Martin Bakole...
Yeah, but I'm questioning that because I'm questioning that because I'm saying to you that he has autonomy, right? You're suggesting that he doesn't have autonomy because his team will map it out. So either he has autonomy or he doesn't.
He will fight any of the guys that I've just mentioned. That if that fight is put on the table,
Do you understand the point I'm making?
Yeah, I understand
because
the point you're making. But what I'm saying is, if his team go right, it's Bakole next, he will take that fight. It's not like I get what you're saying. It's a dangerous fight, but he will take the fight.
I think AJ's in a position a bit like Floyd and Canelo are in America, where it's up to them.
Yeah.
If AJ wants to fight Bakole, the fight Bakole happens
He'll
tomorrow.
fight him, and his team will fall in line.
Tomorrow. And yeah, they have to fall in line. AJ is his own boss. If AJ wants to fight Dubois, it's happening tomorrow. It should happen like that. Anyway, AJ should be that guy.
So one assumes, by the very nature of that assumption, that he doesn't want to fight Dubois. He himself doesn't want to fight Dubois because he's not fighting Dubois.
Yeah. Yeah, look, I wish I could argue against it. If AJ wanted to fight Dubois, we wouldn't be seeing Dubois
it might be
versus
common
Parker.
sense.
Would be seeing Dubois versus
It might be
AJ.
common sense. It might be the situation where he is not, in the same way that people would have suggested different fighters, different levels, I grant you. Everyone said, no way should Joe Joyce go back in with Zhilei Zhang. Maybe get some confidence back, and if he wants to go and redeem that, I know he wanted to get back the WBO mandatory, and that was the motivation behind it, but it was a bad fight for him to pick. Maybe if Anthony Joshua wanted to fight Daniel Dubois, he could fight him further down the line rather than go straight back in. But the fact is, you're suggesting that the autonomy.
No,
I know people.
What I'm suggesting is that I think that AJ is sitting back right now. We've got these big heavyweight fights that are now happening. We've got Daniel Dubois versus Joseph Parker. Let's say Joseph Parker comes through that fight. Do you think then, if that fight, Joseph Parker versus AJ, that fight's presented to him, he's not going to take it?
He'll take the Joseph
of course
Parker
he will.
fight.
So what I'm saying is, he's just waiting. Yeah,
but that's
I know. But what I'm saying,
isn't it?
he's sitting back right now, waiting to see where he wants to go. Not a case of, well, I don't want to fight him or I don't want to fight him. He's just seeing what the opportunity is.
I think we have to be honest, though, Spence. Where AJ is mentally...
You can't see that, can you?
No, I can see it. I just don't think you're right.
I think where AJ is...
Well, listen, it's an opinion, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
But he is a guy that got stopped in 5 rounds. So where he is mentally, I think I'd love to think AJ's doing what you said. Like, AJ will fight all those guys. But ultimately, it's a guy that just got beat quite easily against Daniel Dubois. So I don't know if he is in a situation where I'll fight him.
But he's not
in fight anyone. I don't know if that is the case.
No, but my feeling on it is he's not in a position to rebuild again. That's what I'm saying. He knows that himself. He said it himself. He's been vocal about that. Look, there might be another 12 months left. So it's not a case of then going to rebuild. You either go in, throw yourself to the lions, or...
And that's why I think it's the biggest...
He won't call it a day.
No, he won't call it a day. That's why I think he wanted the biggest money fight, and that was Tyson Fury.
Yep.
Not the risk-reward ones where the risk is so high and the reward is so low against Bakole or Dubois. He wants the one, which is the biggest.
So you're going to lose your money on the Bakole bet, aren't you? Because I don't think he's going to step in again.
No, he's not fighting. I don't think he'll fight Martin Bakole. You think he'll fight Martin Bakole?
We'll see.
Spence?
I think he'd fight Martin Bakole tomorrow. If it was presented to him, definitely. I know that. I don't think I know it.
Really?
I know
what do you mean you know it? How do you know it?
I know it.
You spoke to him and he said...
I know it. I know that
Would you?
Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. I'm just telling you, mate. If that fight was presented to Anthony Joshua tomorrow, Martin Bakole, Anthony Joshua would take the fight. If that fight was presented to him.
Well, we'll see, won't we? I mean, I get the impression, and I know people that are quite close to him, that he's very calm in his mind and very relaxed. One of the things he's been struggling with over the years is finding his own identity, finding his way through the challenges in life about what's expected of him, who he's got to be, why he's got to be this way, what people judge him by, the standards. He's now found the clarity of a maturing athlete. Or it might be on the back of a terrible defeat, and the expectation levels now are being suppressed, and he can live his life in a slightly different way, because walking into that arena, as we all know, there was a very small contingent right up in the rafters and a few down by ringside that were supporting Daniel Dubois and expected Daniel Dubois to win. It was an anointment. It was basically the ascension back to the throne. And so the reality, and from that comes some clarity. And I get the impression from those relatively close to him that he's quite calm and lucid in his thinking and quite comfortable in his own skin, which is something that he may not have been. And unless you've been in this situation, I've always been critical of, and I've made critical observations about him being a flat-track bully. And I take no sense of pride from saying I told you so that he would get beaten by the first live one. But the pressure that he's been under, I saw it a couple of times. When I watched him against Jermaine Franklin, and the whole auditorium, arena, stadium goes into a different mindset the moment Anthony Joshua walks into a room.
It's incredible.
And whether you can relate to that or not, or whether you think that's the price on the ticket, or that's what it takes to be the poster boy of boxing, it's an immense amount of pressure.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think that it's very difficult for modern-day athletes, without giving them any excuses, because I don't give people excuses, to contend with that all the time. And maybe, to some extent, losing to Dubois might have released something in Anthony Joshua that enables him to finish his career in peace and harmony with a big bank balance, because he's going to fight Fury, right?
Yeah.
He's going to fight Fury.
No, it has to happen. One thing AJ's always said, and he said this to me a few times, the thing about boxing, he says, look, no matter what you do, you only get credit for winning. Is there anything else? Nothing else matters. You only get credit for winning.
But the problem with AJ is he's been guilty in the past, up until recent times, really, of overthinking. And that overthinking adds that pressure that you're talking about, Simon. And I think that may now have been released from him.
You know why?
We may see a different AJ.
You know why there's a lot of overthinking with AJ? And I think a lot of people don't necessarily... AJ started boxing at 18. A lot of the people he's fighting have started boxing when they were 8, 9 and 10. AJ's having to catch up. And he's caught up physically, really. That's his thing. He's caught up physically.
But he can reconcile. I mean, without speaking for the fellow himself, he will look at the Ruiz fight and go, there was a backdrop to whether there was something going on in the dressing room, whether there was a panic attack, whether there was this. Go to the Usyk fight. Everyone said he fought the completely wrong fight.
Yeah.
When McCracken was picking the wrong style. Go to the second fight, he was much better. In this fight against Dubois, there's no debate. It was just a complete.
Yeah, I think the problem was that the blame's always been put somewhere else as opposed to looking where the problem may lie. And I think that you can't deny what happened last time. It was look, he says it himself. He made some fundamental mistakes, some schoolboy errors, going back in straight lines. You get caught with a shot. That's boxing, heavyweight boxing, and it happens.
Time will tell.
Yeah.
We'll look forward to seeing what he does next.